Jimmy Carter has arrived in the Bay State. He'll be staying in Clinton, where he will attend a special town meeting this evening and speak to some of the residents there. For a more accurate picture of what's going on there right now, I'm going to throw the ball to Shelby, who's right in the middle of town. Shelby?
Thank you, Steve. Yes, you can gather things are pretty hectic right now. There are Secret Service, state and local police just all over the place. There's a big crowd already gathered across the street from me here at the town hall. The president did arrive at Hanscom Field. He'll be here later this evening. Inside the town hall where the town meeting will be held is Gail Harris. Gail, what's happening inside the building?
Shelby, if you can see behind me, you can tell that there are already a number of people who have come in and claimed their seats. This is, of course, President Carter's first major visit outside Washington since his inauguration, and it seems that the people in this predominantly Irish and predominantly Democratic town are only too happy to be playing host to him. On the way from Boxborough, where most of the presidential party is going to be staying, there were signs in the yards all along the way welcoming the president. In fact, one outside the town hall says, "God love you, Jimmy Carter, because we do." All over you can see people wearing buttons saying welcome. Some have green carnations stuck in their lapels in honor of the president's visit, and of course in honor of St. Patrick's Day, which is tomorrow. There are 1,165 seats here inside Town Hall. A number of them, of course, have been reserved for the press and various town officials who will be here tonight. But there are 850 townspeople who will be sitting inside. They're the ones who were lucky enough to win a drawing last Saturday. And there are also loudspeakers outside for the people who want to stand outside on the lawn and listen. Townspeople are going to have a chance to question the president tonight, and many of those questions will probably center on the economy. Since this is an area of high unemployment, we can expect some fairly sharp and pointed questions there. At any rate, it's a big day for Clinton. That much seems obvious, and I guess the excitement will just continue to grow until the president actually arrives. Now back to you, Shelby.
As Gail mentioned, there are going to be media people inside Town Hall tonight. They're also all over the place out here. But how do media representatives become eligible to cover President Carter's visit to Clinton? It's not easy, as Charles Austin reports.
Being credentialed to cover the President of the United States takes a staff of about 20 people at least a week to make sure all the paperwork is in the best of order. But the entire process began when it was announced the President was coming to Clinton. First, the news-gathering agency is contacted by the White House to send a confirmed list of people assigned to cover the President. That list contains not only the person's name, but other pertinent information that is processed by the Secret Service. Late confirmations delayed the issuing of the credentials for about an hour this morning, but finally we all lined up for a pass that would allow us to get closer to the President than a lot of other people. And before that pass was issued, once again, we had to prove who we were, with two forms of positive identification. In all, some 380 local press had to be credentialed. Another 110 national media representatives had to go through the same process. Once it began, it went fairly smoothly. Well, it only took about 2 hours, but I finally do have my credentials, so now I can get into Clinton and do another small feature piece for the 6 o'clock news. He looks familiar. Charles Austin, First 4 News, on my way to Clinton.
Dan Ray was at Hanscom Field when President Carter arrived not too long ago. We switch now to Hanscom and Dan Ray.
Shelby, the president got a very chilly reception here at Hanscom Field from the weather. It was a warm reception for the people who were gathered here at Hanscom Field. A few hundred people stood out here in a very windswept flight line. The Carter plane touched down finally at 4:50, and the few hundred people were rewarded for their patience when the president appeared at the doorway of Air Force One. Mr. President, how does it feel to be back in New England?
It feels great, great. Two, of course. Two. Easily. Oh, that's
Most of other state dignitaries. From here, the president travels to the Sheraton Boxborough Hotel, where he will be having a dinner tonight, which will end around 7 o'clock. And then from there, Shelby, he'll be heading back to you at the Clinton Town Hall. And I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to throw it back to you, Shelby, at the Clinton Town Hall.
Okay, Dan, the excitement is mounting here. There are more people going into Town Hall. We'll be back in Clinton right after this break. now.
Because Clinton is perfect. Perfect in both philosophical and practical ways. Philosophically, Clinton is referred to as a representative town, the backbone of America, if you will. A small town, a hard-working population, and a place governed at least in part by the results of a town meeting. Pure democracy. In short, Clinton suits the scenario of the kind of town Carter wants to visit. Practically, Clinton is close to Boston with the vast news media hardware and personnel the big city can muster. Clinton is also close to Hanscom Air Force Base, making for a safe landing and a secure journey. Plus, it didn't hurt the town to be heavily Democratic and to have voted heavily for President Carter when he was candidate Carter. And it's in the state of House Speaker Tip O'Neill. In choosing Clinton, Carter again demonstrates a style he's often used during his short time in office, joining the purer aspects of presidential action with the political realities now thrust upon the leader of our Democratic Party. As Shelby mentioned earlier on in our first four newscasts, security for the president is very, very tight today, but what's happening to the small police force in that Bay State town? Shelby, I understand you have the best answer for that question.
Well, Steve, it seems that everyone in Clinton has pitched in to help with this presidential visit, but there is that one group that perhaps too many of us just take for granted, but they have a very big job to do, the local police force. I asked the chief of the Clinton Police, George O'Malley, just what this visit means to him. O'Malley, who's been acting chief for a year and a half, and is...
Really?
What do you mean?
Well, it's being hit like, we're being hit like with a bolt of lightning. We've only had 2 weeks to prepare for this monumental event, and I'm sure we're all proud that he's going to be here, and I feel confident that there will be sufficient police personnel available to protect him.
O'Malley, who's been acting chief for a year and a half, and his 21-member force are all on duty now, and they'll probably remain so until the president leaves Clinton. One member of the force is William O'Malley, no relation to the chief. Come September, Willie, as he's known around town, will have been an officer for 30 years. He came here from Ireland.
In August 1925. I was about 7 years old when I landed here, and I went through Ellis Island, and I come right through from New York right into Clinton. During the Depression, it was real tough. I had to leave high school and go into the CC camp and help support my parents, and then later on I was in the Marine Corps during the war. I was with the 1st Marine Division, and we had some experiences there.
I can imagine. Then after that, after the services, when you joined the force?
Yes, right after the services, I come on the police force.
Has police work changed a lot?
Yes, it has. When I first come on, it was a lot different now today than it was then.
What is the biggest difference, do you think?
Well, the attitude towards the young fellas, I think they've lost respect for the police officer more than when I first come on. The police officer was a lot more respected than it is today.
But Officer O'Malley is still proud of his town and of the people who live here. He knows many of them by their first name, and they know him.
People are wonderful here. They've been very good people here. Mostly Irish and Polish and Italian. I make a point to stop and talk to the different citizens that I see, help them out in any ways I can.
Now, you've been on the force 30 years, and you met a president when he came to town before. Tell us about that.
I was down at the depot, the train pulled in, it was getting dark at night, and I had my flashlight, and as he was getting out the train, I says, President Truman, I says, watch your step, Mr. President. And he says, never mind me, son, watch your own.
Was there as much excitement when President Truman came?
No, not quite as much.
Why?
But I think he just he was just making a whistle stop going through town. He was not going to be here for any length of time.
I wasn't here in 1952 when President Truman was, but as Willie says, it would be awfully difficult to beat the excitement that has Clinton in its grips right now. Steve?
Well, Shelby is in Clinton today with the hordes of news people who've converged on the town and all the excitement that goes with it. Yesterday it was my turn. I spent the day with some news people who spend most of their time in Clinton. I took a look at the Clinton Daily Item, the town's daily newspaper. President Carter decides he'd like to take a look at the newspaper before he retires here at the Thompsons tonight. Hi, Karen. Thank you. In all probability, he'll take a look at the Clinton Daily Item. It's Clinton's only daily newspaper. It's one of the smallest and oldest dailies in Massachusetts, and it's been in the same family since Civil War days.
Today, the Clinton Daily Item employs 30 full-timers on its staff. In the newsroom, 2 news reporters and a sports reporter work along with a news editor, trying desperately to answer the questions about the president's visit and put their own newspaper together as well. There is a bit more flexibility with a small paper's deadline than there might be at the Globe or Herald, but still there are 4,200 people in Clinton and 5 surrounding communities waiting for their afternoon daily. Helter Skelter describes things of late. The Item is presided over by Bill Coulter, the 4th generation of Coulters to run the Item, which has been in the family since 1865.
What is the function, Bill, of an editor on a paper of this size?
Well, mostly to try to get a well-working, smoothly operating team to put out a daily paper. And that in itself is quite an accomplishment. We have different personalities from our reporters, and we have different personalities from our composition people. And what an editor tries to do, especially in the news end of it, is to try to get these people to work together as a team.
At the Item, news copy is converted to computer tape. The old linotype is gone. The tape Claire Harding and Patty Hauger typing will be put through computerized typesetters to be used in making up the pages of the paper, like Marcia Broderick's headline. There have been changes in newspapering. Bill Coulter hasn't resisted or resented. He's home, doing exactly what he wants to do.
I've enjoyed the job. One person once said that for anybody to get anywhere in Clinton, they either have to be Irish, they have to be Roman Catholic, or they have to be a native. Well, I don't do too well on the first 2, but I am a native. And I love my town, and I enjoy working with its people.
The front page layout, worked on by editor Brian Umatz and Neil McKillop, headlines the president's visit. Presidents have been through Clinton before, but there can be no other headline. Ali Kuyala's sports, pasted up, ready to go, deal with the more mundane. Bill Coulter loves it all.
Suppose somebody said to you today, Bill Coulter, we would like you to come and be editor of the New York Times and leave Clinton. What would your answer be?
That would be very hard because, I suppose the dream of many newspaper men is to work on a paper with the prestige and circulation of a larger metropolitan daily. But as far as I'm concerned, I'm very content with staying right here in this kind of journalism, which is I think that has a great deal of appeal to many newspaper men, even those that work on the metropolitan papers.
So, in the basement of the Item building just across the street from the Old Timers Bar, sometime between 1 and 1:30, pressman Bob James says, "Let's go," and the presses run. In the basement, ink, mysterious fluids and oils, the whir of the press, and the smell of the freshly printed items creates an aura that makes one realize that when the president is no longer a local headline, the presses will continue to run, as they have since 1865, and people along Karen Nason's route will lean over the fence and ask one another, "Did you read what so-and-so said in today's letter to the editor?"
Well,
Here at the home of the Edward Thompsons. They still haven't gotten over the shock of being chosen as the host to the president. Our man Dick Flavin looks at the reasons their home was chosen.
There'll be a plaque on this house one of these days. Yep, this old place will be a historical landmark. Jimmy Carter slept here, or at least he will have after tonight. And tonight will be a very big one in the lives of Ed and Catherine Thompson, the owners of this house. But you know, a lot of work goes into the choice of a house for the president to spend the night in. For example, the location has to be just right. This place is only a block and a half from the town hall. Then it's going to be properly secured. Well, the place right across the street is vacant, so the Secret Service can stay there. And then they wanted a place where there were average Americans living, and Ed and Catherine Thompson certainly qualify on that score. And the Carter political people will be happy in that they're both Democrats and they both voted for Jimmy Carter. Well, this is Dick Flavin, TV4 Eyewitness News, and the Presidential Advance Party thought of everything except one. Ed and Catherine Thompson have 8 wonderful children. Not only is that above the national average, but Jimmy Carter might never get to use the bathroom.
Okay, I have a correction. Earlier I said that James Earl Ray had agreed to appear before a Supreme Court committee. I was wrong. James Earl Ray has agreed to appear before the House Committee on Assassinations. Well, that's it for our special edition of First 4 News. Stay tuned now for TV4.
President Carter has arrived in Clinton for tonight's town meeting that's set to begin at 7:30. Right now, my colleague, Jack Williams, is standing by to fill us in on what's happening in Clinton right now. Jack?
Okay, Tony, thank you very much. Welcome to Clinton, Massachusetts, all ready for President Carter to be arriving here in about an hour and 15 minutes. About mid-afternoon today, a stiff breeze came up in Clinton, blew out all of the rain clouds, and that stiff breeze has continued up till now and may cause a few problems for technicians. Directly behind this building is a 90-foot special-built microwave tower, which is beaming the signal back to you and to various stations carrying the President's town meeting at 7:30. And they're fearful that if the wind gusts continue, it may topple, so keep our fingers crossed. I'm located directly in front of the town hall in Clinton. Inside of this building is where the meeting will take place later. Behind our camera and about 150 feet from us, a crowd of about 1,500 to 2,000 people have braved some somewhat chilly temperatures and a breeze to give President Carter a warm welcome when he arrives here in a little more than 1 hour. The President has arrived, as you mentioned before. He landed at Hanscom Field. At this moment, he's at the Boxborough at the Sheraton, where he's having dinner. The holding some informal meetings with Democratic leaders from the state. And when the President did arrive at Hanscom Field earlier this afternoon, shortly before 5 o'clock, Dan Ray, the Eyewitness News reporter, was there, and he captured with our camera people all of the excitement of the President's arrival.
It's been 6 months since President Jimmy Carter was in Massachusetts. He returned today to the windswept flight deck here at Hanscom Field in Bedford, Massachusetts. A crowd of a few hundred people waited patiently here in the wind for about an hour this afternoon, and finally their patience was rewarded when the President appeared in the door of Air Force One.
Enjoying dinner right now, but people around here starting to get very excited. In the background, a band is beginning to come up the street, which will pass directly in front of the town hall. We've heard several cheers from the townspeople. We've heard many, many congratulatory words that Clinton is a great place to be, and they enjoy having the opportunity to welcome President Carter. And behind me, there's a line of people, the last few that are just going in. Already several hundred people have entered the town meeting and the town hall for the meeting tonight. Inside the town hall is Gail Harris. Gail, what's happening in there?
Jack, I don't doubt at all that the people outside are excited, but I hope you can hear just how excited the people who have made it inside the town hall are. There are 850 of them who were lucky enough to win a draw last Saturday. They will be sitting here throughout the night, and they'll have a chance to ask questions. Of course, several hundred of the seats here are for the various town officials who will be attending and the state officials, and of course the traveling entourage of press that always accompanies a presidential visit. If you'll recall, during the campaign, President Carter promised to stay in touch with the people, and this, like the radio call-in show a couple of weeks ago, is part of his pledge to try and keep that promise. The question is, of course, how much of a feeling he can get about what's going on in the mind of the average American, what with all the TV lights, the hoopla, the Secret Service, and all the press that I mentioned just a moment ago. That, of course, accompanies any kind of presidential visit anywhere. However, we can expect that the President will be getting some sharp and pointed questions tonight. Many of them, I expect, will be on the economy. This, of course, is a mill town, an area of high unemployment, and many of the people who live here are concerned that many of the federal dollars may go to the big cities and pass them by. At any rate, we'll know that in a few moments. If you'll notice, there are mics set up in the middle of the aisles. I'm not sure if you can see them at this point, but the townspeople will have a chance to come up and ask their questions, and we can only await to hear what those answers will be. Jack?
You mentioned the word security, and security has been tight throughout the day today. About 55 feet from us is a solid line of state troopers. In addition to the 21 police officers of the Clinton Police Department, There are 200 MDC and state police officers, plus hordes of Secret Service agents who have been here throughout the day today, and also taking their time looking very carefully around as we give a sweep of the area. You can see going down the steps and across into the crowds of people behind the American flag as a band begins to pull into the town hall. They've checked this out thoroughly. In fact, an hour ago, the entire area was cordoned off. Secret Service officials went over every square inch to make sure that nothing could go wrong tonight. It's very tight to get inside the hall, and everything should be ready for the president when he arrives. The whole procedure began very early this morning with hundreds of technicians beginning to arrive and taking a great deal of effort and time to put together this broadcast today. Eyewitness News reporter Charles Austin was there early this morning, and he has a report for us on today's activities. Charles?
Clinton is very much alive today with enough carnival atmosphere to make one believe that the Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey Circus is on its way. Yes, it's true. The President of the United States is coming. Strict security was in effect, but the presence of state police and Secret Service isn't being scowled on by the people who live here. They have become part of the crowd of total hospitality that every reporter feels when he enters Clinton, a community that just embraces you with goodwill. The weatherman could have turned up the thermostat a bit, but there was enough warmth generated by the excitement. I guess no one went to school, and a lot of people took a 2-hour lunch break from work. Most gathered close to the town hall, a building that in the last few days has been transformed into a media production studio with miles and miles of cable and portable equipment being fed over, under, and through the building. Do you have any idea of how many volts of electricity are now running through this place?
Well, we have 400 amps coming out of our own system here, but the media had about 1,000 more installed on a special circuit that they set up outside for their cameras and stuff. Mind-boggling. Yeah, sure is. We have wires coming in and out of windows here that haven't been opened in years. But we'll get it all taken care of and all secured again.
Do you think the old town hall will survive it all?
The old town hall will make it. It's a well-built building, and we're very proud of it up here in Clinton.
So there is a festive carnival atmosphere in Clinton right now, and everybody here is working hard to make sure that it all comes off all right tonight for the president. Charles Austin, TV4 Eyewitness News, reporting from Clinton.
Clinton's town hall for the moment, at least. Of course, the Clinton High School band is struck up here on the steps. We'll be back at 7 o'clock with our special edition. At that time, we'll be covering the president's arrival here at Clinton Town Hall. That arrival live at about 7:15 to 7:20 this evening. And at 7:30, we'll be covering live the entire proceedings inside the hall at the Clinton annual town meeting. And the
Streaming across that Central Park here in the town of Clinton to give President Carter a warm welcome. He'll be arriving in less than 1 hour. Many people have asked us why Clinton was chosen as a site for a town meeting. That is, that a typical American town. I'll bet that President Carter would wish this is a typical American town. It voted for him by a high majority. He received 3,900 votes in Clinton compared to 1,900 for President Ford, then President Ford at that time. This has a high degree of unemployment in Clinton, and it's a former mill town. It has a very large and town meeting hall in which can accommodate many people. It, of course, is close to a large metropolitan area in basically the Boston area and gets lots of press coverage, as we've indicated. And one other thing that may or may not come to mind, and that is that this happens to be the state of the most powerful man in Congress, Tip O'Neill. And Tip O'Neill is very pleased with the fact that President Carter is coming tonight. Tip O'Neill will not be here. He's in South Carolina. But his son, the lieutenant governor, will be here along with Senator Ted Kennedy, and there'll be 3 congressmen and many, many local dignitaries. They should be arriving within the next half an hour. It's also, by the way, this town is very close to Hanscom Air Force Base, which is, the field is only a half an hour to 45 minutes drive from here, and that is a high security area. All in all, Clinton was a very good selection for President Carter. He's looking forward to a big night here, and so are the people of Clinton. That's the update, Tony. Back to you.
Next day festivities, the president's visit is probably less a shock than it might be. St. Patrick's Week, we should say, is not a normal time in Clinton, no matter who comes to call. But it is a jolt. the tons of equipment for TV, the trucks and mobile control rooms, the miles of cable, the hundreds of people who appear, at least, to know what they're supposed to do with all this. Secret Service men and all the necessary security arrangements. All this creates a scene at some considerable odds with normal times in Clinton's Old Town Common. But there are realities here: unemployment, inflation, high prices. By the time President Carter goes to sleep tonight at Catherine and Edward Thompson's house, his memories will no doubt include a warm welcome from Clinton and some very tough questions. This is Jim Kincaid, ABC News, at the Town Hall in Clinton, Massachusetts.
We're about a half hour from now. He will attend the annual town meeting. News Center 5 will be covering that meeting live from 7:30 to 9 o'clock. Jack Hines is in Clinton right now, and we go to him. Jack?
Thank you, Natalie. We're standing on the steps of the Clinton Town Hall. The Clinton High School Band has struck up a tune. It's been entertaining a crowd that has swelled from 500 or 600 to more than 1,000 in the past half hour. A crowd lining the street opposite the town hall and back into the common that borders the town hall and the town square. President Carter is expected to arrive here in about 15 or 20 minutes. Inside the hall, people have been waiting patiently. Those who have been fortunate enough to get tickets to get inside, they've been waiting since about 6 o'clock. And outside, these people who have been waiting in the cold will also be able to see Mr. Carter's arrival and, of course, hear the proceedings inside the hall during the town meeting. Joe Day is covering inside the hall right now and has an update on what we can expect. Joe?
Well, Jack, here inside the hall, town moderator Eugene Caffarelli has just begun to start the meeting. The special town meeting called for the appearance of President Jimmy Carter. Most of the people who have been able to get in this hall are in and in place, and the meeting has begun. I've been here in Clinton several times in the past 2 weeks since President Carter's visit was announced, and I found it to be a pretty interesting place. Earlier, we prepared this report on what kind of a town it is that Jimmy Carter is on his way to.
When you enter Clinton from the south, you see first the expanse of the Wachusett Reservoir, part of the water supply system of eastern Massachusetts, and then you see the dam that holds back the reservoir. Beyond the dam lies Clinton, established as a town in 1850, population now about 13,000. You know right away that when they talk about mill towns, they are talking about towns like Clinton. You know it from some of the houses as well as from the factories. You can learn that there are a lot of people out of work in Clinton, perhaps as much as 10% of its workforce, itself comprised mostly of people in manufacturing or clerical jobs.
Sooner or later they all come back. I've been here, well, 47 years. I've been born and brought up here, attended the Clinton schools, and I've been in business here at the local station here now for 20 years. And
why do they all come back, George?
Nothing like Clinton. It's a great little town.
You learn that the Irish and the Italians and the Poles, and yes, still some Yankees are here, but mostly the Irish. And if they and democratic politics long have been close, then in few places has that bond been stronger than here in Clinton. Why, at one time, the town could claim a U.S. senator, a congressman, a state senator, and a state representative, all as residents. The freshest political memory is of Congressman Philip J. Philbin, one-time chairman of the House Armed Services Committee, who died in 1972. Why is there such a long tradition of politics in Clinton?
People wanted to get to the top, and the only way, perhaps, in focusing in upon particularly the Irish, because they were the ones who came here in the mid-19th century, that they had to assert their rights, and the only way they could get a stronghold for themselves and for their fellow immigrants was through politics.
In last fall's election, all but 1,000 of the town's 7,200 registered voters voted. They went for candidate Carter over President Ford by more than 2 to 1. Presidents have come here before. Harry Truman on a whistle stop in 1948, FDR in a motorcade in the 30s. And now in the 70s, another, Jimmy Carter. And most indications are that his visit is perceived with good humor and gratitude and pride, and as the grass begins to turn green here in Clinton, not a little hope. I'm Joe Day.
Thank you, Joe. A presidential visit to any community, any town, Clinton included, is always preceded by a phalanx of security and news people. And that alone has an impact on the community even before the president arrives. Last weekend's bombing in Marlboro has heightened security measures for Mr. Carter's visit. MDC police have sealed off the Wachusett Reservoir on the outskirts of Clinton until Mr. Carter's departure tomorrow morning. Clinton's 21-man police force has been augmented with large contingents of state and MDC police and, of course, the Secret Service. The one-story police headquarters across the common from the town hall has been converted into the main command post. Police barricades have sealed off the streets surrounding the town hall, and a short distance away at 309 Chestnut Street, where Mr. Carter will be the overnight guest of the Thompson family, troopers have already begun their vigil. Clinton Police Chief George O'Malley says he was shocked when he first learned of Mr. Carter's visit. Now, only a few hours before the president's arrival, O'Malley is excited but confident all will go well.
We feel we're going to be hit with a tidal wave tonight, and we know that it'll be over tomorrow.
Chief, when you first learned that the president was going to visit Clinton, what was your reaction? Do you recall?
I was shocked. I was really shocked. It was like getting hit with a bolt of lightning.
Even more than the added police, it's the media presence in Clinton that has dramatically changed the look of this small Massachusetts town. Miles of cable and wiring spilling out of the windows and doors of the town hall, the trailers and minivans converted into TV control rooms, and at least 500 reporters, photographers, broadcast and telephone company technicians, all assembled to put Clinton on the national map, at least for this night. And of course, in Clinton, it's one night that will be remembered for a long, long time. We'll be back live from Clinton. We'll be back when the special town meeting begins and President Jimmy Carter arrives here at Clinton Town Hall.